I'll take that one, that chair that's out. Anybody else? Whoa. The audience is now deaf.
What? Nobody wants to touch it after that.
No, that's a lot of fucking hum. All right. Fuck it. We're using one. And if you want,
It's a small room. Yeah, I was gonna say you can shout.
Yeah, right.
We're all loud.
What? All right. So, as I said, we have VCs and investors. And so, step one, whether you want to use the mic, whether you just want to project from the diaphragm, each of you give a quick overview about your background. All right, here we go.
All right. Hi, everybody. Rich Maloy, managing partner with Springtime Ventures. We're a seed stage fund based in Colorado, investing nationally. We invest in fintech, insurtech, logistics and supply chain, and healthcare. And I'm also the host of the VC Minute podcast, quick advice to help startup founders fundraise better. I think to 113 episodes on that now. And so definitely go check it out. Each episode is about 2 minutes long and is literally quick advice to help you fundraise better.
Hi, my name is Matt. Like I said earlier, I'm an early stage. I'm a managing partner in a fund called JCap. We invest typically $500K to $1 million into early stage startups. Everything from, like I said, you have an idea and you're about to leave Google to we've been doing this for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and we're just looking to get started. And everything in between. We invest everything from deep tech, pharma, biotech, but have a lot of SaaS, a lot of fintech, and everything across the board. So I'm happy to be here.
Hi y'all, I'm Julie Penner, and today I'm wearing the hat of venture partner from the Fraser Group. We are a family office based out of Utah, but doing deals here in Colorado as well. We look for technology startups doing 500K plus in annual revenue. We're, as a family office, we don't have a lot of rules, which is great. So we do life cycle investings. We do cross-fund investing. You don't know what that is? Happy to explain. Basically, like we can get creative around financing and writing checks into companies over, 5, 10 years. We 14 years. It's again, no rules. So yeah, we get covered. Very good.
I'm Brad Greenwald, Hilltop Venture Partners. I'm sitting up here thinking that I gotta get some new shoes. I mean, I'm looking at Eric. Those are, that's some badass shoes. Look at that. Beautiful. He'll be selling those later. I'm an early stage investor. I put in my own capital into early pre-seed and seed businesses. My background is mostly in industry, and I started my own software businesses. I've got about 100 high net worth VCs and family offices that invest alongside me. So it's usually my network when I put in $500,000 to $1.5 million for these deals. I am generally an aspirin investor, problem solution. I sort of don't tend to go for swing for the big ones, the moonshots. But so I kind of like people that are more narrow and focused. Is kind of my thing. But,
This will be a well-traveled microphone this evening. So, first question, very high level. How would you describe the early stage fundraising climate in 2023? I'm going to kick it off. Yeah, right. Fucked.
That's a technical term?
Technical, yeah. I'm not even trying to make an acronym for that. Okay, I think I can characterize it with 3 things. Number 1 is hot or not rounds. Number 2 is follow-ons and how important follow-on investing is. And number 3, I completely forgot. Oh, multi-stage funds and the impact that they're having on the market. And so real quick on all of those. The hot or not ties into the to the big multi-stage funds. Big multi-stage funds are coming in and they invest in seed and rounds, and those rounds go from maybe raising 2 million to raising 5 million or 7 million. I just saw a $9 million seed round announced the other day. That's not seed, that's like 3 rounds combined. Right? But a big multi-stage fund doesn't give a shit about a $5 million check, so they just spread those all around. And there's a lot of that happening all around. And so you might read the news and see how somebody raised $9 million, and you're like, oh shit, well I can't even get $500,000 together, what the fuck? Right, well, it has less to do with you and has more to do with how the big multi-stage funds are investing at the seed stage. The second piece is follow-on. And most startups right now are coming back to their current investors to raise again. And so this is actually tightening the constraining or bridge. Inside round, a bridge, an extension, whatever, right? Everybody's coming back to raise again. And so this constrains the capital that funds can deploy, because we need to put more towards our current companies. Even if we might end up with the same portfolio size in the end, in the short term, we're putting a lot more towards our follow-ons right now. And I think this is happening across the board. I'll let everybody else weigh in on that piece, right? And then the last piece is those big multi-stage funds and just the effect that they're having on the seed market.
I think that's at a high level, maybe to add on that, because I agree with everything that you said there. You have to understand from a VC perspective, the way that the whole machine works is that we have LPs and investors that invest into our funds. Those investors give us certain guidelines, like, hey, we're going to give you $20 million and you have X amount of time to deploy that capital to an extent. Even if it's not written, it's kind of suggested. So that's why you have all these big stage investors that raised a lot of money over the last couple of years that are now going, we have $100 million, let's say, to make math easy, that we need to start investing now. We typically invested in Series A. None of these companies are now valid for Series A based on current market conditions. So we're coming down to seed, and we need to deploy some of this capital, which inflates a lot of these valuations for some companies, but not all, going into the hot or not type of aspect. If you have an idea that could be multi-billion dollars, you're going to get funded, especially if you have conviction. If you don't, it's going to be very, very hard, and that's where you see these big stage tech companies that need those billion-dollar exits now coming into writing checks where typically they could write a check for a company that maybe didn't, at least at this stage, have the potential to be $1 billion, but now they need to be showing that. So I was chatting earlier where you need to be, Series C, but with Series A or B type of metrics or at least valuation type of things to kind of go forward. So I like that. I like that input. The other thing that I'll say is when you have a lot of capital that's kind of at least sitting on the sidelines, the most unique thing that you can have in 2023 is some sort of edge that shows you that you have a distribution model that is unique to what you are doing. Distribution is the most important thing. I talk to hundreds of VCs a week where the most important thing they look for is distribution. What is the unique edge that you have that maybe no one else has in your space? With AI, with the cost of capital, all these things, people can create companies now that maybe 5 years ago would have or should have been or need to be venture backed, no longer need to be venture backed. What are you going to do to get into the hands of your customers that your competition is not? So to kind of piggyback off that, I agree with what you said. The other most important thing I would think about is distribution. How are you going to have that unique edge in distribution in 2023?
A couple of quick ones. One is, let's be hopeful about this. Look, if you're a good company, good team, good idea, people are going to get funded. So obviously you guys are here because you're optimists and you should tap into that. There's a lot of money in a lot of VC funds just sitting there, and it's got to get put to work. Sure, they're going to take the summer off. It's not going to start up in maybe the fall, maybe 6 months. So be realistic, but it's going to start to be put to work. Two, there's super hot sectors, AI, generative AI, all these kind of stuff that you're hearing about. If you happen to be tacked into one of those, you can still raise money. And then I'll just want to throw one thing out there, which is do the math. Okay, so you can't get 10 million for valuation. Suck up, get some greed going with these people and me. And price it at 5 million, get going, okay? Run your numbers. If you have 30% of the business and you're trying to raise $1 million, you do it at 10 versus 5 valuation, you're gonna have 24% instead of 27% of the business. It won't make a difference. What will make a difference is that you're gonna get some money so you can build something out there. So definitely try to think about that if you're starting to go out there and get money.
Oh, I do have one thought. I like David Cohen's rule for startups. Rule number 1, don't die. I think that's where we're at.
Brad, you brought up something that I was going to ask about at the very end, but let's just talk about it now. There's this thing that historically was known as the summer black period or dark period that basically meant that from, call it, early June to early August, all the investors were going to France or going wherever else, going to Martha's Vineyard. And it was almost impossible to get a quorum of partners together for the Monday morning investment committee meeting, which meant that getting a term sheet in the summer was almost impossible. Then COVID happened, and suddenly all those investors were sitting in front of their computer on Zoom meetings, and there was a lot of capital that was deployed in the summers of 21 and 22. Looking at where we are the first day of June in 2023, is the concept of the dark period back, or are we going to see a nice amount of term sheets getting written in the next 2 months?
I mean, the answer is no. Like, basically, people are trying to rule, the VCs are trying to rule out, not rule in. They want to wait, they see valuations coming down, they are a little bit deer in the headlights, a lot of stuff going on, Ukraine, the debt crisis. They're going to kind of wait and let it all settle down. So I've heard from a lot of VCs, like, literally they're thinking, I am going to take the summer off. And I don't know if it's back to the old model, but it's basically just, I'm not going to put out so much capital. So, I mean, just realistically, it's going to be a very tough summer.
I agree, and actually, I think the worst week of the whole year, other than maybe between Christmas and New Year's, is the last week of August, like going into Labor Day. Like, just go on vacation. I know you're founders. Go on vacation that week. No VC is doing anything. You're raising. Okay. And what was I gonna say? I forgot. Yeah.
I think the kind of what you were saying, I think it's less about the summer lull, because I actually think because there is so much capital to be deployed and a lot of folks are eager right now and are kind of being pressured, where on the investor side, we have bosses where it's, we gave you money, we need you to put it to work as well, especially compared to interest rates right now, where I could have taken my money and I could make really good money right now. You need to produce. So there's a pressure still on VCs to invest the capital that they have. But to your point, the world is kind of in a shit show right now. So as much as there can be a delay, there will be a delay. So I think the answer to your question is it's less of it's because of the summer lull and more because of everything else that's going on. But I do agree that I think it'll be a little bit of a lull.
I remember. So we raised a 1-year, $27 million fund, which is somewhat unusual in the VC world, but it does mean we have a clock on that. To Matt's point, right, about we have to deploy that amount of money in 12 calendar months. Yeah, and we're judged. Well, we're a family office, so we're our own judges. It's a little different, right? But it really depends on a fund, right? If you're at the end of your fund cycle, you might be reserving a lot of your cash for follow-ons on the companies that, like, ooh, are they going to make that bridge? Oh, I really want, that should be a winner, right? You might be taking the summer off, right? If you just raised, maybe you can wait 6 months before you write your first check. You're taking your time. But if you're somewhere in the middle of your fund and you haven't deployed much capital and you're looking to get all of it out in the next 3 years, you should be asking investors these questions. Where are you in your fund cycle? How much have you deployed? What is your reserve rate, right? These are questions that VCs should be able to answer for you, and I think are fair game for founders to ask.
So one of the things that I'll kind of say, and I know that I see people are recording this and it's on there, but the one thing that I've seen over the last 6 to 12 months are a lot of VCs that have been desperate, knowing that something like this was going to happen, to try to close their first or second vintage, especially a lot of the capital coming from these early stage funds, trying to close very, very quickly, and then not making it in time to raise their next round. I can't tell you how many funds I've spoken with over the past couple of weeks where last year, 2 years ago, they raised great funds and they were investing into startups like yours that are now not able to get that capital because, again, these LPs that are wealthy individuals that are investing into funds like ours are now very comfortable investing into T-bills and things that are going to produce 5-10% in some cases in some of these lower risk categories. They're not able to raise money. So all these investors, very good point, they might be coming to you and being like, I'm this big VC, I can write you a check anytime you want. And then you ask them these questions, and they're like, well, actually, I don't have any cash right now, but when I do, I will talk to you. So be sure to ask that question for sure, because it's also hard. Not that there's a boo-hoo here, but it is hard. A lot of VCs that you might look at and go, I need a check from you, they're like, I need a check too. So as soon as I have it, I'll write it. So there's definitely a lot going on there.
Can I add one more thing to this? Because I think this is important. So one of the other things that I'm seeing happen is that even companies that are a little bit further along that either have bootstrapped or who are looking for a line of credit, right now a line of credit, I'm seeing stuff in the like 10% range, right? We're into double digits for investors. They can put their money to work in a company that's growing and probably profitable for double-digit returns.
It's crazy.
Like,
They should do that.
yes, that's. I mean, that's what's happening to the capital that high net worth individuals would maybe otherwise have put into startups.
So ultimately what I'm hearing is don't plan on getting lots of positive response during the summer. It's possible. One thing that I'll throw out there, right, is if you are desperately looking for capital right now, focus on smaller funds. Smaller teams have a lot easier time, right? When I've done a lot of work over the years with First Round Cap. They have a team of like, I think it's 8 partners at this point. Again, trying to get a quorum of all of those people, because in a firm like that, anybody say no, right? So everybody has to say yes. Whereas, say, Springtime has 2 partners. 2 partners. I don't care if Rich is in fucking Martha's Vineyard, he can still get on Zoom on Monday morning for an hour and talk things over with his partner, Matt.
More likely tell you right.
It's still nice. So, up here, can we get a better mic? Can we all agree that it is fundamentally harder to raise capital in 23 than it was in 21? And the way that I would sort of define that, right, is the bar is higher, and that companies that raised in 2021, if they were trying to raise today with the level of progress that they had made in 2021, they might not be able to, probably wouldn't be able to raise capital now. So with that in mind, what companies, who should be raising early stage capital right now? And think of that both in terms of pre-seed and seed. What are you all seeing as, from your own deal flow maybe, what is the minimum, generally speaking, that you want to see? And that's not just revenue or customers or whatever else, but what defines a really compelling company at the pre-seed stage and the seed stage?
All right. What defines a really compelling company? The seed or pre-seed. I feel like this hasn't changed for us since we started our fund. Right? So we're looking for founders with deep domain expertise, building truly transformative products, which sounds like the same bullshit that every VC says, right?
Yeah.
But we're the way that I explain it to founders, like I actually just did a VC minute about this yesterday. Do you invest, or 2 days ago? Do you invest pre-revenue? Well, it depends. Okay, what does it depend on? Right? I'll say for us, there are 3 throttles, right? And the further open that they are, the easier that it is, right? And so the first throttle is revenue. So the more that the revenue throttle is open, the easier it is to invest. And let's just say that's shut. For us, this is the Springtime perspective, but for us, if you have prior startup experience, you've built and grown and you've founded, built, grown, scaled a startup, you have been through that motion before, there's less, you've already made mistakes on somebody else's dime, that throttle is wide open for me. Right? The other throttle is a domain expertise. Do you know this industry so well and you know it so deeply that you can talk about that pain point, right? If you can talk about that pain point and turn that throttle all the way open, now you're making it easier for an investor to get to yes. In fact, really what you're trying to do is get them to say, I can't say no to this. And the way that you do that is you just keep pouring on where you have your throttles open. And some other things that could, there's some other things that could lead into an investor saying yes or an investor saying, oh, I can't say no, would be other forms of traction that you have about customer acquisition or the viral growth. Growth is a very important part right now. If you do have revenue, how has your revenue been growing? And so really lean into those pieces that you have that are working for you in order to be able to bring those investors on board.
quick thing. So, like you said, nothing's changed, right? We are looking at returns, we're looking at risk, right? We're really focused on risk. So we want to manage team risk. We got to see you've got the right people on board with domain expertise. Probably one, I love the hacker, hustler, hipster, making sure you have those personas on your team. Product risk, all that kind of stuff. The one thing that has changed, maybe, is finance risk. And maybe you don't think about it quite as much as we would. The risk is basically, can you raise your next round? Can you get to that? Can you do enough science experiments? Can you get enough revenue that you're going to get funded? A year or two ago, it was like, oh, don't worry about it. 9 months from now, I'll be at 200,000 ARR and I'll raise an $18 million round. It felt that way. A lot of entrepreneurs said that, and the finance guys went along with it. Now we're looking at it with a tougher eye. So basically, if we see that in 9, 12 months, you don't have the possibility of breaking even, or you can't show dramatic growth and blah, 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 we're going to be much tougher. So our expectations are higher, and that's one of the reasons why it's tougher right now.
The only thing I'll add is that what I have seen a couple of times, I'm sure everyone here has, right, are companies that raise an evaluation that they don't want to take a down round, right? They don't want to raise it something less. And it's sort of like a stalemate for us, right? Well, I like the company. It can be a very compelling company. Like, I can't get to an up round on that company given the market dynamics, and that's going to kill the deal. And so I see a lot of stalemate happening between founders who want to raise at something at or above what they raised at last, VCs who don't want to give that valuation, and therefore it's like a cram down to profitability, right? That's the pattern I keep seeing over and over again.
I think one of the hard truths in the whole industry, and I've started founding companies and I've raised capital and everything there, the vast majority of startups, probably in this room, should not be raising capital. The vast majority. So I see, we have a bunch of partnerships, and we see probably about 1,500 deals per month that I would consider as folks that are trying to raise money, that have really good ideas, that are putting their pitch in front of us. We invest in maybe one or two per month, maybe. In some cases, over the last few months, we've invested in one over the last 3 months. We see a lot of deals. Most of them are just not venture backable. Who here, just raise your hand really quick, who understands or what a venture model from this side actually looks like? Do you understand how do VCs make money? How does that work? Ish? Not very many do. When I was a founder raising money, I didn't understand that. But what ends up happening is we're up here, we need to show results in order to raise another round of funding so that we can take a certain percentage of that fund, pay ourselves a salary, and then also make a percentage off of the gains that you have in the companies and things that you do. So on our side, we're very much incentivized to say, regardless of your revenue and what you're investing in, and granted, every VC has a different way of looking at this, but I may be speaking from certainly, if you're looking at Bay Area VCs or New York VCs, they look at it and go, are you a $1 billion company? And I remember when I was a founder, I was like, doesn't matter, what if I'm a $50 million company, $100 million company, you still make your money. It doesn't actually work. Like the VC math behind the scenes doesn't actually work in many cases for a lot of VCs. For some of the VCs up here and a lot of folks that you may talk to, it does work, and that's where you need to find folks where the VC math works for, we need you to be a $10 million company or bust. A lot of funds, that's what it is. In fact, I would say the majority, even if they shouldn't be, you have a lot of solo GPs that raise $10 million funds, and their LPs are saying, hey, this needs to be a $10 billion fund. We're giving you $1 million, it's a $10 billion fund in 10 years, right? They need to get a Tesla or a SpaceX or one of those to work. If I talk to you for 10 minutes and I go, you're probably not a Tesla, you're not a SpaceX, the market is physically impossible for you to be that, then I'm out. And I think a lot of VCs unfortunately have that mentality. So the most important thing, and I'll reiterate this again, is you need to pitch yourself as that Tesla or SpaceX, even if you don't believe it. The hardest part about raising money as a founder is that you actually have to lie to yourself, because it's as much as we want to be an Elon Musk or we want to build that $1 billion company, it's really, really hard to really, really believe that. But you need to be able to show that, and you need to convince the VCs that you're talking to that you are going to have that $1 billion outcome, and here's why. To me, that's one of the more important things that you have for anybody on this panel, regardless of if you're looking for $1 billion outcomes. If you can successfully tell somebody that you're a $1 billion company and very well articulate how you're going to get there, going back to distribution and whatnot, that is going to be the separator that you get, because The 1,490 deals that I see do not do that very well at all, and I have to pass. If I were to invest in you, then I can't raise another fund. I can't continue to do my job. That's what you're competing against. So you have to convince the person that you're trying to raise money from that you are that 10 out of 1,500 that is going to get there. And it's one of those things, you have to practice it in the mirror. You have to tell yourself all these different things, and you have to articulate that in the best way that you can.
Speaking from an outsider's perspective, I think the thing that a lot of founders forget is that everybody up here on stage invests in disruption. Disruption is not something slightly better. Disruption is something completely fucking different. And so many pitches that I've seen, and I've tried to pass on to investor friends and whatever else, is we've got a better way to do X. Better doesn't mean fuck all for anybody who's writing a check. SpaceX wasn't better. SpaceX was literally creating a route to to outer space that didn't involve working with a government, right? That was a completely new thing. And so if you've got a company where you aren't truly turning the world on its head, or at least your large market on its head, there are other ways of building your business, and you don't have to necessarily raise capital. Moving on then, thank you for all of that. What does a good fundraising process look like in 2023? Shit's about to get real.
What do you mean by that as far as the diligence process, or what do you all the above?
If you were raising capital right now,
Oh, I see.
what are the top 2 or 3 things that you would absolutely need to know?
Do your work first, find all the funds, start your outreach, get as many warm intros as you can, practice your pitch, make it a dedicated, focused effort. Full stop.
I'm going to be really quick on this one. Outreach and get warm intros. Do not cold outreach to somebody to get a warm intro. That does not work. Just reach out to funds directly, give a really, really quick pitch, show the value like I was saying, and that's going to be the best thing that you can do.
When I work with founders on investment, preparing for investment, right, I work on 6 things. I work on a teaser deck, which is an emailable deck. I work on whatever pitch you're going to do on stage, because you should be talking to people. I work on a financial model, because everyone's going to ask for it. I work on your cap table, which is, important. I work on mock investor meetings, which is getting practice with investors and what they hear when you say things. It's a little tough for the average founder to go out and do. And then I work on a due diligence room, or like a data room, because that's what investors are often going to ask for. So, and then a pipeline, that's the other thing, right? So these have all been kind of conversations about pipelines. Get to 50 before you start and separate it into A, B, and C investors. Good tip, start with your B investors so that as you learn in your learning loops, right, that the first 5 or so, you're not gonna be great with your investors, right? You don't wanna go at your very favorite investors first. Go with somebody that's like either gonna be kind and a friend and will tell you what you're messing up and how you could be better and how you could be clearer, or try on some investors that you won't feel sad about if they end up coming back and they give you feedback about how you are coming across, right? You have to take those learning loops. Even if you've just raised a round, right, your story is different now. You still need to practice the story for whatever stage you're raising in, if that makes sense.
So, first of all, just hire her is what you gotta do. But I love the idea of really trying to get feedback, because basically we all know 99% of us are gonna say something nice to you. We don't want to say anything mean, whatever. I like to try to get feedback. I'm sure these guys do too. Ask all the people that say no to you. Say, okay, you're not gonna invest. I get it. Just give me 1 more minute. What is one thing I could work on to make a better pitch, or one thing that this business could be that would help out? Because it may turn out you have that, you just haven't focused on it, or it may turn out it's a complete blind spot and you don't have a good CTO that's going to help, and then you got to go find one. But better to know that than waste your time getting lots of like fake yeses and maybes, and you'll never get anywhere.
I love that framing of one thing that I could do to improve the pitch or improve the company. Right, Matt's math, right? 1,000 pitches every month to make one investment, right? That's kind of the standard that you hear is for every one investment, it's 1,000 pitches or 1,500 pitches. And it's important to recognize that for the vast majority of them, right, just triage. They're trying to say no as fast as possible. And so when you go back to an investor and say, hey, I just want to better understand, in most cases that VC thinks warmly of you and doesn't want to spend another fucking minute arguing with you, and they don't know whether or not that's going to turn into an argument. So that framing of, hey, can I just one thing, right, via email, just tell me one thing that I could work on. It frames it as this is not an ongoing conversation, right? This is just one piece of party info that you could give me. Also, Matt, right, you mentioned earlier on about that, what is your distribution strategy? I was talking to the folks at the sales table saying, I can't imagine starting a company ever again because every channel feels like it's saturated. And I'd be interested, from your experience of the last year, what things have you seen that gives you a sense of faith that they're going to break out in some capacity from a go-to-market strategy?
I have a good one. So we specialize, we work a lot with companies in this particular thing. So my partner is Julian Shapiro. I don't know if you know, but he's an incredible growth mind. He's worked with, he was a partner at Y Combinator and worked with a lot of the growth aspects of the companies going through there. And the one thing that we look for, and there's two things mainly. One of them is market pull. And this is something that if any of you are pitching your investors, if you can convince me that you have market pull, you've already gone to the top 10% of the pile of folks that I listen to.
What does that mean?
Market pull is the idea that there is not much, so pull and push, pull being something that when you tell somebody about it, they're naturally going, I need that, I want that, I'm gonna do whatever hoops you need me to jump through and I'm gonna go through and do that. Push, being the opposite of that, you need to push your customers through. We all get that, even in successful companies, you're gonna have to push a lot of customers through that sales cycle. But what I like to see, and what a lot of VCs like to see, is that you have a very natural market pull. Whatever you are selling has a very natural way of when somebody either sees it for the first time or experiences it for the first time, they go, aha, yeah, I like that. You think of like an Uber. Remember the first time everybody heard about Uber? You might have at the outside, everybody's talking about it, you're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. You ride in an Uber once and you're like, I'm gonna ride an Uber forever. That's what I'm gonna do. Same with Airbnb. You hear the same thing. People talk about Airbnb all the time. They may not be, you're skeptical at first, but you hear about it, you try it once, and then you do Airbnb for a long time after that. That's market pull. How do you have something that naturally pulls people in without you having to do much push? On the other side of that, if you have a product or service that maybe at the surface level is intriguing enough to get somebody to sign up, something that you can do that maybe doesn't have market pull, you can create that pull in your product. So I specialize and work with startups, even our portfolio companies, in building levers inside of their product that initiate that pull. So you have the aha moments, 1 or 2 steps into your product, and then you create another lever, which you should all be focusing on, which is product-led growth. How do you have your own product naturally and organically grow without having to do any sort of advertising? It's one of those things where at a surface level, I'll give you some examples, you're gonna go like, I can't do that. There's a lot of examples and ways that you can creatively build this into your product. Common examples of product-led growth is whenever you were getting those emails sent from my iPhone, that's product-led growth. People will see that, oh, it's sent from an iPhone. What's an iPhone? Everybody knows what an iPhone is now, but originally it was a very status-oriented symbol. When you see that, you now need an iPhone because the person that sent you an email also using an iPhone. Same thing for Venmo is another good example. I want to send you $20 in money. In order for you to get that money, you need to sign up for Venmo. You're doing the job of Venmo to get that other person to sign up. Slack, another very good example. In order for me to get full value out of Slack, I need to invite my 20-person team. You've just increased the user base for Slack by 20 people by doing the work for them. How do you pull those levers in your own business in order to get customer acquisition without going through the traditional models of what is now, I would consider, a very bad model in advertising Facebook, Instagram ad spend is very, very hard to become profitable, and because there's no cash flow, it's very difficult to actually make that a very profitable lever. So finding those creative ways to either convince me as an investor that you have natural market pull, meaning that what you are building is naturally incentivizing folks to sign up and use your product and then pay for your product, or convince me that you have levers within your business that you've either artificially created and are showing that are also going to get people to sign up, use it once, and then they're naturally going to invite other team members, people to use it, talk about it with their friends and family. All of those things, you don't need dollars in order to do, and those are going to be the most important things that you can add in your business in 2023, and certainly ongoing with distribution.
Sorry, long ramble. We talk about those things.
A lot.
Time. There we go.
Yeah, we're just gonna talk. The lack of feedback from the VCs, and at least 3 or 4 of them, I think speaks to the universality of this problem now. Right, going to an investor and saying, "I've got this fantastic idea. Just trust me. We're gonna figure out how to get it to market." I don't think flies at this point. You have to have some sort of proof. Switching topics entirely. The last 6 months, last 9 months maybe, we've heard a shit ton about investing in AI. What's that look like now that we are going into June of this year? What's the state of investment in AI?
Bubble, I think is what I'm looking for.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, have anybody invested in AI on this panel?
No, I think where VCs are at are they're trying to figure out how their portfolios are going to use AI, right? And for us, it fell in 2 camps. There are AI companies in our portfolio, and they have now certain different new challenges and need to work together, learn, help each other. And then there are all the other companies that are not AI companies, but now have to use AI in their companies in order to continue to compete. And so I think VCs are trying to figure out both of those things at the same time.
I don't think there's a lot of investment into AI necessarily. There's obviously, you look at OpenAI and some of these big companies that are doing it, but across the board, we get so many AI deals. But going back to your term, saturation is the most important word tonight. Distribution and saturation. AI is so saturated. I can't tell you how many ideas I see for AI that are exactly the same, exactly the same. That I can't, and from our side, we're not saying no because, well, I've heard that idea 10 times. We're not saying it because of that specifically. It's because I know that those 10 companies are now going to go sell those same 10 people the same product. And there's no way, unless, going back to what I said earlier, the convincing aspect, the most important part of a fundraising founder is convincing the person that they're going to be that special 1 out of 10 person. If you can convince me that those other 10 AI companies are not going to get those people to buy your product and you're the winner, that's one thing. But I haven't seen that across the board. Most AI products I've seen are just so surface level. The winners in AI are going to be big products that leverage AI on top of what they're doing. I think a lot of VCs are skeptical. The other unfortunate part about AI is it's coming after this wave of crypto that now nobody, I feel so bad for crypto funds. I had so many friends that raised tens of millions of dollars in crypto funds, and now I'm like, they probably will never raise or be a venture capitalist ever again because of the fact that they invested in the space, like you said, is now a bubble. I think a lot of VCs are skeptical on AI for the same thing, where they're not going to look at this as, I'm not going to gamble my whole career on investing in industry after we just saw this massive bubble. So if you are an AI company, I think it's actually harder to raise than you think because A, there's so many companies in AI trying to raise, and B, there's just so much saturation from a consumer level. Trying to sell your AI product is also going to be pretty difficult.
I mean, that being said, you better be looking at how to use AI, or defensively, how an AI-driven company can eat your lunch if they can reduce their costs, if they can take judgment and creativity to some level that can enhance the solution to the problem you're presenting. So if you don't understand this very, very powerful new technology, and I certainly don't, you gotta start learning. So go take some courses, go talk to smart people, because it's a big deal. And I guess all of us would like to see our companies taking advantage of new technology that's out there.
I'll add on just that I love the Web3 AI comparison, right? And the thing that AI is, that why it's different is that it's so easy to use. Whereas Web3 was just technical barrier after technical barrier after technical barrier. And I'm still waiting for Web3 for normals. And we're actually still talking to some blockchain companies, and we have a blockchain company in our portfolio that doesn't even like to say blockchain. They say distributed ledger. But the way that they use it is they use it what it's for, which is a technology. And then you build a business on top of the technology. And I think a lot of Web3 had that inverted, whereas let's create a technology and maybe there's a business there. But where AI comes in, and echoing Brad's sentiment here, right, is that it's so easy. It's so freaking easy. And so for us, we're waiting to see how all the madness shakes out right now, right? There are lots of crazy frothy valuations going out. Yeah, absolutely. But it will open up a whole new world of new opportunities and new possibilities for new startups to be built coming down the road. And so we're excited for that piece of it.
Can I add a data point really quick?
Please.
I have a 50-person, a good friend of mine, 50-person company. His tech team says they're 30 to 40% more efficient with AI. If you have a tech team that is not 30 to 40% more efficient than your competitors, you are now starting to lose in the market for building the best product. That is that's reality today, and I think that's the biggest thing. And it's the devs are already using it, the tech teams are already using it. The rest of us are going to need to keep up with that very quickly in order to keep up with companies that are starting today.
Here's a crazy thing. Show of hands up on the stage. Who thinks that AI will be a fundamentally transformative technology on the entire fund? So it's not that AI is a bad thing to have as part of your company. Part of the challenge, right, is a year ago, everyone on the stage, all of us, started seeing magic tricks, right? We literally started seeing things that weren't fucking even thinkable a couple of years ago. And that created a whole bunch of initial investment and people going, holy crap, like this is transformative, this is disruptive. And then every week, I feel like over the last year, we've seen things that weren't possible the week before. And if you're an investor and the concept of a defensible technology moat has just disappeared, how do you invest in a company?
Distribution. Show me you got
Distribution.
distribution.
There we go. Perfect. I love it. All right. One last question. Please.
Can I add different words to the word distribution? I think that it's correct, and we're going to say the same thing, but the words for me are top of funnel. It's exactly the same thing, but it's the same problem I see every company having. If that's a different way for you to think about it, that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Attention. How do you get somebody to pay attention?
Yeah. Very top of funnel.
Just to very seriously see your product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got something?
Yeah. Well, you said, how are you as a company going to differentiate? Right. My first thought was the founder. Right. Great. The best founders can navigate the waters. They will navigate the waters no matter what comes at them. Absolute best founders will navigate it. And so we are investing in the founders because we're trusting them to navigate the waters for their business and find the right path through, because it's freaking hard. It's really, really hard building a business. And so that is where the faith for us is, and this is where, what's the differentiation? Look at the founders that we invest in.
I want to build on that one for a heartbeat. So this is my own personal pet peeve, right? So I think that Silicon Valley has led this trend in very product-oriented CEOs. Who's heard of I invest in product-oriented CEOs? I might have said that exactly like this, right? What I'm coming to understand or sense is that we have over-indexed on product-oriented CEOs at the cost of go-to-market CEOs. And actually, if you have a sales or a marketing background, I think we're going to see that become the kind of CEO that gets just as much interest from VCs, if not more.
I wish more salespeople would be CEOs.
Yeah.
They're not.
Right?
They're not. They're not. They make too much money otherwise.
We got a winner.
Honestly, like the AI, right? It's gonna get easier and easier and easier to build product, but it's exactly what Matt is saying, right? Like, but I'm yet to hear VCs, so I'll be the first one to say, like, I'm looking for go-to-market oriented CEOs, right? Like, product is easy, right? But that's the trend I see coming next, really.
Yep.
That's great. That's really a question, I guess.
Yeah.
Not everybody out here is that person, right? So what do they do? What do you do if you're like, you're not, you might be a hacker, you might be a hustler, you might be a hipster, you're not all those three things. And I guess the question is, what do these folks do then? How do they kind of, is it a team? Is it a proof? Like, I'm just, what should they do?
I would love to look, Brad and I taught a class together, so what do you think we should do, Brad?
She learned how to turn a question to question. I'll just say, you need to show these guys that you've got a package, right? You've got all those pieces there. And it can be that you're an amazing CEO that can do all those things, but you probably aren't. And if you might not even be anywhere near a salesperson. One of your founders or one of your key team members better be fucking great at that, right? If that's important to that industry. And that'll be enough to hopefully show all of us that you've got those pieces. Honestly, like, I overuse this, and whoever did hacker, hustler, hipster, I think those are great things. If you can look and define who on your team is a hacker, top 2 or 3 people, or a hustler and a hipster, you have to have those 3 personas. Those are the 3 things you're going to need to be a successful company. At least if you come to me, I'm going to be pushing you on that. If you only have 2 out of 3, I probably won't invest.
So, given, right, Matt, your statement earlier, a lot of people in this room probably shouldn't be raising capital. And to be fair, a lot of people in this room aren't raising capital to bootstrap. When you talk to somebody and they feel like it's an existential thing to raise capital, right? We fundamentally can't get this company off the ground without capital. But they're not a fit for venture. What advice do you have?
Yeah, I think on top of that, not only are most companies not really fit for raising venture capital, I'd argue, unfortunately, that most founders are not fit to actually be founders and CEOs. It is a very, very gruesome, troubling job. I don't know why we choose to do it, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. I know. I was telling somebody else earlier today, Y Combinator, they spend the first week trying to convince you out of starting your company. They actually plant and have executives from Google and Facebook that come through and actually offer you, like, hey, $300,000 signing bonus, $300,000 a year, you want in? Leave your company now and we'll hire you in. They do that because they understand that the breed that we have of people in here is incredibly, incredibly rare. It shows that you are intelligent, smart, creative, you're willing to think outside of the box, which is a rare characteristic that very few people have. But to be a good leader and CEO is actually even more than that. I actually learned the hard way, I am actually probably not a very good CEO. I am very good at raising money. I am very good at convincing people and telling people things and coaching them, educating them. I'm very charismatic. I was not a very good CEO. And I was telling somebody else today that the only way I could probably be a good CEO is if the stars aligned and all of a sudden I'm in this perfect situation where I'm building something that I truly, truly believe in. I have high knowledge on it. I'm probably like older and I have more experience and all these different things. But the vast majority of people are probably not there, and they fall into that category, which makes the whole process of raising money that much harder, because now I'm on the other side of the table and I'm giving money to folks. I see that very clearly. A lot of VCs see that clearly. So they see right through you when they're talking to you and going, you're not that. Your company's not that, and you're not that, which is so hard, and you'll never hear that from most folks. That's where you get the, well, it's X, Y, and Z problem, and you talk to me in 6 months, and I'm gonna drag you through the mud for a year and a half and ruin your life. That's not at all what they really just can't say that you're probably not the right fit to do this because of the reasons I said earlier, where the VC math doesn't make sense for me to invest in you. The hardest part about me being a VC, and again, no boo-hoo type of thing here, but it is so hard because I meet so many people where I'm like, that is a business where if I had capital that I could invest on my own, I would invest in a heartbeat, because I think you're gonna make this a really successful business. It's gonna turn into $200, $1 million, $2 million a year, and you're gonna have a handful of employees. You're gonna be doing very, very well for yourself. I wish I could invest into those businesses, and actually I hope that someday I have enough personal capital to do that, because that's where I think all the fun is. So the recommendation I would give for a lot of you, the happiest people in the world that I know never raised VC money, or they did and they realized that it's a fucking sham and it's horrible. Your VCs are horrible, it's a horrible game to play. Some of the most unhappy people that I know are billion-dollar founders that are living day to day in shackles. They can never leave these companies. They're every single day they're being told they need to grow X amount of money. The other side, in fact, Natty was the one that told me this. I think about this every single time. Natty Zola, he told me that ask yourself before you do any sort of venture or any sort of thing, what if it actually works? What if you raise money and become $1 billion company? I can tell you from personal experience and people that I've met, it is awful for most people here. So when I say that you're not fit to be a founder, it's not that you're not fit to take it to maybe that level, but it might be that you do take it to that level and you hate yourself. You do not want to live another day in whatever shadow that you've created. It's more that it's less about you're capable of doing it, it's more that you personally are just not gonna like yourself when you do it. And there are plenty of founders that I meet where they live for that. I think of the Brian Chesky's, Mark Zuckerberg's, all those folks, they live for that like tension of how do I get that $1 billion to go to 10 billion and 100 billion? 99.999% of people are not that. So it's really, really hard. So that being the grand scheme of all of it, if you can not raise money, you'll be the happiest people in the world. Typically what I see people raising money for is that they have a current job, they need to pay themselves. There are ways that you can try to get a little bit of income, chip away at it over time. It's not a race. You can try to find ways, using things I said earlier, find distribution channels that are low cost, talking to users, it's the stereotypical YC thing, talk to your users, build a slow business as slow as you can, get a little bit of revenue, and then bit by bit, you leave your current job, you go full time, you're doing a lot. That's most of the grind, but I guarantee you that if you can get 3, 4, 5 years into that, which is a long time, the happiest people I know have made it past that, have never raised a dime in venture capital, and they're making millions of dollars a year in pure cash flow going into their pockets, that even successful founders that you meet that are raising capital, that I just raised a $50 million investment, I'm making probably $150K a year, and it might go to zero in 2 years and I'm worth nothing. If you can break through and actually make cash flow, real money in a business, so many of the ideas I've even heard tonight, I'm going, that's a great business that you could create without VC money. I'd be incredibly happy. I'm happy to talk more like individually and specific, it's all very specific, but my recommendation for most folks is never raise capital, don't raise capital. It's not worth it. And there are so many ways, especially now with AI and all these tools, that you can find ways to turn your business into something that's profitable, making money for yourself, and probably more lucrative in the outcome at the end than if you were to raise money in venture and go that route. So.
Let me throw out a little something that's a little harsh. We celebrate the people, the entrepreneurs who have grit. Who goes on 200, he gets 200 no's, and at 201st he gets a yes, and he turns it into a business. Well, unfortunately, that is a unicorn. Most of us, most of you, and most of the people in the world will go on their 200 or 201st and still get a no. So you can't confuse grit and stupidity. Think about narrowing your scope so you can self-fund or get a bank to do it or chip away at it. Sometimes we ask and want to do something nationwide and that can be all singing and dancing thing. Maybe if you've done 200 of these and you've gone out there, you can't get the money, it's the wrong time, or it's the wrong business, or you're the wrong CEO for it. It's a harsh thing, but the reality is, don't go on your 201st no. Narrow your scope. Come up with a way to do something, a piece of it. It's not as satisfying. Maybe you can get it down to a little piece that you can pull off the 50 grand from your own. Put it up.
I'd love to build on that, and I want to catch one thing because I know Matt will be okay with it. When he says, I think the words were fit to be a founder. He's talking about a very particular kind of founder, right? A venture-backable, institutional investment-backed founder, right? That's a very specific kind of founder. Agree?
Yes,
that's what you meant.
100% agree.
Right. Like, I think anybody can be a founder, and I actually think this country needs more people to be entrepreneurs and start new things.
100%.
And those are all founders. So go be founders.
Yes.
He meant that.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
Venture-backed founders are a very different breed than you starting a business and running it. Yes.
Yeah. I talk about when I talk about to companies, I talk about revenue-backed investing. I talk about equity, crowdfunding. I talk about raising one round and then getting out, right? And setting the expectations that whoever gets in one round, I'm gonna raise one round of capital to help me get a product built and into the market. And then I don't intend to raise more capital. That's tough for most institutional investors. They're not gonna invest in that, so you have to be careful about who you tell that to. But if you can find people who like that kind of investment, and I've seen it, right? They want to take a big stake in a company and then own 10% of your company forever, and then it generates revenue over the next 20 years. There are investors who like those kinds of investments, right? Doing an angel round, right? Like, angels are nowhere right now, by the way. But those are all other things on the spectrum that are before or in opposition to institutional capital. And I think being well versed in all of them, lines of credit, right? Customer-backed funding, right? This is what a capital stack really looks like. And I think we do a disservice in the entrepreneurial community by not talking about all the other sources of capital that founders have, right? VCs get a lot of attention because we have big mouths, but it doesn't mean that we have the best capital.
It's expensive, yeah.
So VCs fetishize people like Travis Kalanick, like Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was an asshole. First time I ever met Travis Kalanick was prior to Uber. It was at a South by Southwest party. Complete stranger, I am. And he walks up to me and goes, "I'm the only person who's ever been sued for $1 trillion. Cool, I guess. And there's a reason that VCs are looking for those people. Again, they're looking for people that will change the world, right? Like him or hate him, Travis Kalanick instituted some fucking change. Steve Jobs, absolutely. Fucking Mark Zuckerberg, Jesus Christ, Elon Musk. When your business model is predicated on funding unicorns, right? The difference between a 10x return and a 0x return for most funds is minimal, right? It is far better, or not far better, let me rephrase that. It is not very meaningful to return your investors' money, like compared to a zero, a goose egg, when you're looking for 100x returns, right? 1x, 5x, 10x doesn't matter when you need to 3x the fund, and that's gonna come from one investment out of 20. And the challenge, right, is that VCs have a portfolio. Any reasonable fund is gonna have at least 20 and perhaps even 30 or more investments. And if one of those dies, and statistically, 50 to 60% of all VCs, smart people, they put their money in and 50 to 60% of those investments will go to zero. And that works for them because they have 30 fucking or 20 fucking investments in a fund. You might have 5 or 6 companies in your entire career. The odds are very different for you. So don't listen to what makes a good VC CEO and think that that is what's required to make a great business CEO. Is that fair?
I want to idolize some local heroes here, right? We're talking a lot about the Bay Area bullshit, right? But this is Colorado. We fucking do things differently in Colorado, right? And we have great examples here in Colorado, right? So you have Isaac from SendGrid and then Jim Franklin from SendGrid as well, who took over SendGrid and grew it and scaled it until it was time for IPO, and then he stepped down, right? You meet people talk about, oh, who are the active angels in Colorado? Jim and Denise Franklin, and I think that's it. But I think they've invested in every venture fund in Colorado. Like, they're amazing human beings who built and scaled that company. Since I'm a VC, I have to talk my own book, but Sondermind, right? Mark Frank, the CEO of Sondermind, right? Amazing human being. He is
Not an asshole.
What?
Not an asshole.
Not an asshole.
He does not have to be an asshole.
He is not an asshole, right? And so there are good people that are building and growing companies. And so you don't have to be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. This is Colorado.
Woo! So. Speaking of, Nuggets won.
Can we take some questions from the crowd?
Yeah, go for it.
I got a question. Okay, so hypothetically speaking,
let's say it's been difficult to raise capital, and let's say your board was divided on direction, and one person wanted to go one way, and your other board members wanted to go another way. You finally figure it out. You're able to raise some part of your round. You can close that, kind of move forward. How much is that the people who didn't want to move forward in this direction are going to kind of be divested? They'll still be there. Down round, cram downs happen, things. How big of a negative is that relative to everything else? And does the existence of at least some investors re-upping give you some confidence in future investment?
Wait, really quick before we answer, what's the board? Is this board people that are on your team board or mostly outside board?
The investors. So we had investors who were like, let's stay in the industry and sell to this group. Other investors who are like, we think there's opportunity elsewhere, go pursue and find that opportunity.
And you guys pursued the opportunity, took it down round, and
Yeah, we got some traction there.
Yeah.
We would like to fill it out, but like, how much does the noise of divided board influence your decisions as investors?
probably not at all. Or very minimally. I mean, it's not often you talk to the board, but as you're as an investor, but probably rarely. But you do need to have that signaling of having some of your previous investors in the round, and that's a very important signal. Might not be everybody.
So at least get some.
Yeah. Yes. That would be my short answer.
I would say really quick, as long as they're not sabotaging. If it's a net zero where they're just like choosing not to be helpful or go above, then that's negative fine. But if they're sabotaging and they're like deliberately holding back to prove a point, that's very different. So.
Trevor?
Yeah, Matt, what's the best book or literature you read about those levers inside a product that can track? We just really start notifications function.
Yeah, if you go to julian.capital, we have a lot of articles that we've written on there specifically for that. If you email me or we can chat after this, some of them are password protected, but I can give you passwords for that. But yeah, that's probably the best.
You know, okay?
Zach?
Yeah, for B2B SaaS, going out to raise a first round, is there a traction metric in terms of MRR or any kind of thing that is advisable? And I'm sorry to be speaking so loud at you. I just want everybody to be able to hear.
To me, that's the three throttles, right?
Yeah.
But it's other things as well. Mike Maples from Floodgate said that the best founders are time travelers. They come from the future to tell us what the world is like with their product at full scale. You've heard this from me before, Zach, right? This is one of my all-time favorite quotes. So come from the future, tell us what the world is like. There's a lot of things that you can lean into.
There's a timing mechanism that I see VCs go through where if you have 50K in MRR and you've been doing this for 3 years, that's different than I have 50K in MRR and I've been doing this for 4 months. Trying to find ways where you can show momentum is important when you're talking about MRR or revenue in general. So it doesn't matter the number, it's more the momentum of we have this amount or this amount or this amount. I hear numbers from millions to like thousands and hundreds, but I might invest in all of them. It's more the momentum and how can come from the future and convince me this momentum leads to something that's bigger. But I haven't heard any VCs that, at least these days, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, more about I always heard the 50K MRR to get your Series A type of thing. I haven't heard those as much now.
I think one of the changes I'm seeing more, and God, I hope this is true, I do think we're looking more at unit economics.
Yes, for sure.
Right? So, great, you're at 100K MRR, you're at 50K MRR. It's like, well, what is talk to me about your P&L. Like, how is it looking? What do you have to do to get that? Can this be profitable? Like, I think we as VCs have gotten away from that discipline more because there's so much money in the market for so many years. Founders could raise without having to have that discipline. There's always something I've liked coming back to. We should have a viable business. It's on all of us that how many
Crazy tough.
viable businesses can we find
It's the
it.
CAC. You gotta show the CAC. You gotta have that customer acquisition cost.
Todd?
You guys all mentioned, reasons why you invest in companies. Some were slightly different, and you also mentioned a lot of San Francisco companies or big companies, and it's kind of easy to see, after the fact that, oh yeah, Uber makes sense or Airbnb makes sense. I'm kind of curious if you guys could name like one or more discrete examples of companies that you've invested in recently or previously, and why you were excited about them.
I'll also say that Uber got a Series A check here in Colorado.
I was gonna say that was. Brad?
I get turned on by these kind of companies, and so I have to there's a company that's doing stuff with, without getting into it, they do stuff with the data for wearables, and it helps other companies. So I like companies that are selling to other businesses. So, I guess I'd say that's sort of a narrow thing that I just sort of happen to Jones on. But they're, again, back to the whole thing. They got a great team. They kind of have a unique approach to the market. It's a growing area. Wearables are really important. Data is really big. When things flow into the rising tides of interesting technologies and interesting movements, that just kind of gets things exciting. And again, back to why do people invest? Two reasons. There's traction and there's FOMO, right? And mostly it's going to be FOMO at an early stage. And so these guys excited me about that. They thought, man, this thing's going to take off somehow. I'd like to be part of it.
I'm going to take an angel perspective. So I wrote a personal check to a founder, a company called Grist Analytics. It was not big. In fact, I think she raised money. She raised like a small round, not institutional money, but she got a lot of pushback around. It's not a big market. She's helping breweries ferment more effectively. Or actually anything where fermentation is a process. It's typically on like paper and pen. So I love businesses where paper and pen is the standard and come in with technology. It's also a wicked smart and incredibly articulate founder. I believe in her capacity to just build something interesting here. It may or may not be, venture big, but I think she's gonna build something good here. And she's done well over the last, that investment about a year ago. Company's growing, solid founder, solid team. Like, it's probably gonna grow slower because she could raise venture capital. But I love that business, right? Like, and part of it, I love that VCs can't understand like kombucha. It's part of the reason she didn't raise money, but whatever. I'll be happy when they're wrong.
We have a couple companies that I love. One of them I'm very convinced is going to be the next NVIDIA. Like, it's going to be $1 trillion company, and I'm convinced they're building like a new way of doing what NVIDIA is doing. But they have incredibly smart people that left quantum computing levels and are creating different ways of just computation in general. So those are the type of ideas that I love doing. One of the ones that I love talking about, like dinner party level that we've invested in, which is great, is a company that's they've invented a way to turn dead bodies into nutrient-rich soil. Again, it's a very type of thing, but everybody dies, and they figured out a way to, instead of cremation and other things that do have all these effects and all these things, they've developed a technology that very quickly and efficiently turns human bodies into rich soil, and they have relationships with all the national parks in the United States, and you can actually have a location planted where you could have a loved one's soil put and then a tree planted in national parks. So that's one of the other ones.
Why do you like talking about this at dinner parties? Fuck.
The AI computer stuff is there's another one that I love, and this is where this is an idea we actually passed on, but it was so close and I love it. An idea where you look at solar farms, and there's a bunch of solar farms across the world. What happens at night when there's no sunlight? This was a company that was throwing satellites into space to redirect sunlight to shine down onto solar farms 24/7. And the reason we couldn't invest into that, this is another reason why at this level, at least we get a lot of no's, is that I have no doubt that the government is going to fuck that up in no time. And if I didn't have to worry about the government going in and being like, that's not something that should happen, laser beams coming from the sky, no way. But that was one that I loved that I wish we could have invested in. But
I'll look at that. Colorado has a ton of really incredible aerospace companies
so cool.
happening here. Like,
And
we are the
climate.
hub for some really cool shit that's going to happen.
Even in this room.
Most recent investment for us was a company called Bondside. They're based out of New York. It's a revenue-based financing model for four-wall businesses. And so a store, it could be a restaurant, it could be a nail salon, it could be a pet care group, any place that has 2 or more locations that wants to expand to multiple locations. The founder had domain expertise. She founded a company. She was one of the co-founders of Glowbar, a facial salon in New York and other big cities. This was her pain point, and so she knew the pain point very well. She had a finance background, so she knew how to bring the finance side to and make the economics work. I fucking love revenue-based investing. I love that I could invest in something that's revenue-based investing, and she was a badass. And so, like, badass founder that, like, you just like, holy shit, got to invest in her.
Sweet. There you go. Right on. Any more questions?
I was gonna say, from a biotech, defense, aerospace, like R&D heavy business, what do you look for in traction other than, because these are businesses with
No
just,
traction. I mean,
right.
Yeah, you're gonna have it. I think the thing that we look for personally, and a lot of funds have different ways of doing this. You either have pre-innovation, so it's like you have an idea, I have a paper, a scientific study, something that I've done that I think will work, and we need capital, obviously, to prove that it'll work. We invested in a company that's doing fusion, and same type of thing. It's like there's no way that, we invested post-innovation. So they've already invested or had money that they've raised to build something that does what they think will work. So we typically invest there, where it's post-innovation. They've created at least even a small fraction of what they think, just to prove that they can do this. Whether, going to scale is a whole other monster. So you see, that's where the Sequoias and those invest in the companies. Not even post-innovation, but post-scale, where it's, you have an idea, great. You've proven that you can build it, great. Can you build it at scale so that it actually produces what you want it to be? So we like to invest in the no traction, there's not a lot of revenue, but you've shown that what you're building can actually be feasibly possible, and you have something that's working. And then we basically judge those investments on, do we think you're the right person to scale that, either technology or business model? That's a good question, it's tough.
All right, it is almost 9:30.
Oh my God.
Normally we do 30 minutes. This was almost an hour and a half. Thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you very much. Rich, thank you for literally coming in just to sit on this panel.
Pleasure.
Everybody, thank you for coming tonight and talking about your own experiences as investors. Round of applause for everybody. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. All right.
The show upstairs is free. If you would like to, if anybody wants to go upstairs and check it out, you're welcome to just head on up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks, Danny.
That was great. That went by fast.
Do you drink that? Do we even have battery left? It's still going!
Looking forward to seeing you.
Hey, keep being awesome.
Keep being awesome.